Hey guys, Miles Away here. So today we're going to be doing a project walkthrough of my brand new song Horrors, out now on Lowly Palace Trap Nation. So this is a big future-based song in the style of ILLENIUM, Said the Sky, Devin, and if you like that kind of music, big melodic future bass, you're going to like this tutorial. So please remember to like and subscribe if you like this content. Thanks for watching, and let's get started. Alright, perfect. So to start, we're going to take a look at how I started the song, which was with these guitars. So just the guitars and the vocals are going to sound like this.
Thought I made it through the fire. Truth is that I'm on thin ice. Nothing's right and...
So what I think is really cool about this is right on its own, it's still got a really organic and complete almost like folky texture to it, and I think a lot of that comes from these melodic guitar lines that I improvised in. I did the whole thing in one take, as you can see, and I just improvised playing along, and they do things like this. What this does is this adds a really cool sort of like counter melody that goes along with the vocal but never really gets in the way. I think it's very important to try to make the things in your background of your song that aren't the main feature still interesting, but not taking the main spotlight away from the vocal, the drop, whatever. I think that's really hard to do, and I still struggle with it, but here I think I did a pretty good job. So a really good tip would be, if you just have a vocal and a guitar or a vocal and a piano, try taking one instrument of your choice and doing one final pass through where you kind of do a couple melodic fills and something really organic and human. All right, so moving on top of these guitar tracks, we have essentially a bus that is all the pianos, all the other verse instruments. So really nice piano. This is the Unicorda. I love it. It's a great piano. Highly recommend this one if you guys want to make some very emotional sounding piano music. So layered with that, I've got a pluck from Contact. This is a world music sample. Gives that really nice transient punch. And then over top of that, we actually have strings. Again from Contact. So these are the Adagiato strings from 8DIO. Really love them. So what that just does is just layers everything together and makes it a little bit more interesting than just a piano. So the only other part to look at in the intro would be this piano. So again, it's going to be an Unicorda, and it's layered with these acoustic guitar harmonics and another Contact sample called a polyphon. So I like to try to find weird and interesting things to layer over top of traditional instruments. I find it really just adds a lot of interesting depth to the sound. Lots of nice reverb there. The reverb I like to use on pianos is called EOS by Audio Damage. Really great for long reverbs, but there's a lot of other good ones like Valhalla as well. Okay, moving on here, we're going to go to the drums. So the drums in this track are quite simple actually. So altogether they sound like this. So I like to use my drums in battery. So the kick and the snare, those are being processed in battery, completely dry, just with a bit of EQ. So the kick is my kick from Sad City, and the snare is a snare from Sad City as well, hence the title of the project, Drums from Sad City. Over top of that, we have some loops from Cymatics, just for the hi-hats to give movement. They're not really a main focus in the song, the drums, so I just wanted something punchy that wouldn't get in the way there. So the only other really interesting drum sounds here were going to be these cinematic drums that come in the build-up. So what I did here is I performed them all with finger drumming in Contact and then bounced them down to audio. So these are from the Indian Contact Bank as well as the Damage Contact Bank. One in particular, Indian tabla. I use this in almost all my songs because it's a drum, but it has a very distinct tonal note. So you can make it be the note of your song, the key note of your song, and it adds a really cool sound to things. All right, so moving on to the part that most of you guys, I'm guessing, would want to check out in this tutorial, we're gonna go into the drop. So first off, the bass. So the bass is actually two sub basses. So one is recorded on my Moog sub fatty here, and it's gonna be the big main sub bass, but over top layered is a higher sub bass so that it can be picked up on smaller speakers, on earbuds, and you can still hear the bass line. So that one is just a plain sine wave from the EXS24. Moving on here, we've got the stack. So this is one of the largest synth stacks I've ever made in a song, and one of the reasons why it took so long to mix. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 layers in the stack that play and drop to. So altogether, that is gonna sound like this. Awesome, so this stack started off with an analog sound from the prologue that I just thought had a lot of character. It wasn't really energetic, but it sounded like Blade Runner, which is why I named it the Blade Runner sound. So on top of that, I layered some more chords, so including a stereo analog sound from the Korg, a big washy high-pass saw patch from Serum, a leading note. And what I mean by a leading note is I like to take sounds that have a really distinct character and have them play one or two notes I want to emphasize from my drop stack. So that sounds like this on its own. It sounds like nothing on its own, but in the context of things, if we add what we have so far, adds a lot of emotion. So then what we did is we layered a bunch of mid basses. So all of these have their sub bass cut out, but together they sound like this. There are 3 of them, I believe. Yeah, 3 of them. Adds a lot of body. And then we have our white noise layer that I always have. As you can see from the waveform, the white noise actually goes down in volume over time and then repeats, which makes every single time the drop melody repeats, it gets back up to that initial level of energy that it had when it first hit. Next up, final things in the drop are going to be these layers of miscellaneous support sounds. So these sound like this. On their own, they sound like nothing, but they really just add a lot of energy to the context of things. So if we start muting things and unmuting things, we're gonna have the drop sound like this. There we go. One part I forgot to cover here is the guitar here that comes in. So this only is in drop 2, but really simple guitar patch that's just going through a ton of reverb. I bounced it out so I can control where the reverb ends. Awesome. So next thing here, we're gonna go to a really interesting sound that I made specifically for this song. So it's a vocal that I took from Autry. Sounds like this. So this, without any plugins, sounds completely different. It's gonna have, it's gonna be basically a small chunk of her voice that I repitched and then looped. So the first part of that is gonna have just some OTT and EQ to make it sound a little bit more punchy. Next up, we go through a guitar rig from my Alone Tonight video. You guys remember I love to do this to vocals. So much energy. And then what we're gonna do, we're gonna add an LFO tool, delay, and reverb for movements. And there's the sound. Only other thing, some stereo spreading just to make it a little bit more side heavy and less in the mids. And then some EQ just to take out some of the mids. So that's that sound, really cool sound in my opinion. And then the other vocal chops for the song are going to sound like this. So I did a tutorial briefly on how I make my vocal chops in my top 5 plugins video, but this one is no exception. So I took a bunch of chops I liked, and then I re-pitched them in Melodyne so they followed a melody I liked, and then added some pitch correction, OTT, bit crushing to get a crispier in-tune sound, some saturation to get an amp modeling and get that really aggressive texture, and then finally some reverb for space, and EQ, compression, more reverb, and we're there. Alright, that's basically it, guys. Only last thing to cover is going to be the lead vocal itself. Now I make all my vocals in a separate project. I'm actually going to be doing a how to produce vocals for EDM tutorial, but one fun fact I did want to point out, I don't know if you guys noticed, but my voice is actually in this song as well. Autry sent me one vocal track, so everything else you hear in the song is actually me singing.
Nights are still coming, day and night. I won't close my eyes.
Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. That's all for today. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the video. If you have any questions, I always make sure to reply to every comment. And until next time, don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to be awesome.